Welcome to Hey Dad Podcast. Real dads, tough issues, and a genuine love for a fatherless generation.
Hello and welcome everyone to Hey Dad Podcast. I'm Rick Rivera. I'm here with
Chris Lawler. This is my son, James Lawler, on the bass.
Yeah.
Don't put a lot of expectations about that bass. He's more there for the eye candy than he is for the music.
Today's subject is Men Go Their Own Way, or also called MGTOW. This is, I don't know to call it a movement. I will call it a movement. I think that is appropriate.
Philosophy at the very least.
Philosophy/movement of men. And we want to discuss that openly.
Yeah.
Because part of the movement is there's some truths in it that resonate well with people. And then there's some truthfully or terribly horrible lies mixed in. And those are usually the most dangerous type, when you have a vein of truth, but you have lies mixed into it.
Well, for those of us who don't know anything about MGTOW, tell us what this is.
Okay, so it's a movement for men. From their perspective, it'd be a movement for men to become self-aware.
Kind of emancipating and empowering of men within their own culture.
Right.
And mainly it's to untether them from dependency on women.
Right, exactly. They feel women of today lack character, lack loyalty, and they have a movement. I'll just go over some of the key points of the movement. Now, the thing about Men Go Their Own Way, it's a huge spectrum. So you have some men who go off, live in a cabin in the middle of nowhere, and they're completely Then you have the other end of the spectrum where men are okay, but they want to use women. So you can use a woman, but you're not going to take care of a woman.
Right.
So there's a full spectrum on this, but here are some of the key points that I was able to find on the subject. Women are a trap. It's a perspective that women trap men. Being with a woman is a losing game.
That's going to take some explanation.
Yeah, we'll go into that.
But that's what they think.
That's what they think. Yeah, that's how they see it. Family courts are stacked against men.
True.
I had to say true. Avoid marriage, relationship with women, or don't stay with them long enough to have a common law relationship. So in California, it's 7 years. So they're saying, hey, 6 years, buck out, because if you go into the 7th year, now she's going to be entitled to things you own and so forth.
And these are all ways that guys can be slippery and escape before they're tied down.
Right. Then it says here, men are better off focusing on themselves. That troubles me a lot, but we could go into it a little more later. But taking care of themselves, taking care of their body, their health, to do projects, and to do the hobbies they like. So that's a big thing about also building wealth, using that time away from women, not distracted by women, to focus on these things.
And there's not much you can say against that. Obviously, you want to take care of yourself.
Right.
It's the caveat is at the exclusion of giving your life to somebody in a commitment.
Exactly. So let me go. There's a few more here. Women treat men badly. I'd say, and for the most part, no, but there's moments of that.
That's their general statement.
That's right.
Not ours.
Yeah.
Everything that you are hearing right now is not the opinions.
No. It's coming from the MGTOW movement.
Okay.
Modern women should not sleep around or buy into hookup culture. That's one of their philosophies. And I have to agree with that completely.
Restate that, please.
Yeah. Modern women should not sleep around and buy into hookup culture.
They're telling women.
They're telling women. They look down on women who do that.
Oh, I see.
But there's a good portion of the segment that will use these women.
Right.
But so they won't respect them. They'll just use them.
Yeah.
So women will always be looking for a better man and will waste your time. I think there's a lot of young dating men who would say, hey, that's my story, but we'll move on. Women today lack loyalty and cannot be trusted. Men have, these men have a general disgust in modern women's lack of discretion, how they speak and how
Boy, talk about calling the kettle black.
I know.
Wow.
Now, in fairness to the movement, there's this huge spectrum. So I can't say this nails it, but this is kind of the key elements in the middle of the road.
These elements are floating in their stew. So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Chris, do you want to touch on each one?
Well,
I mean, we're talking about...
why is this MGTOW a big thing? Who's saying this? Who's buying into it?
What's the guy's name? Tate? Andrew Tate. This guy has like 11 billion views of this.
Billion with
billion views. People listen to him, and he presents himself in a way like, I've really made it. He's a very handsome man, all buffed. He's the next kickboxing champion. So he has all this thing. He has women floating around his house, and he brags about he's with them as he wills. He's a king of his house. He's a high earning male, and he deserves that respect. And so he sees himself, and then he even has these classes where he teaches people these philosophies.
Wow.
Yeah, and so and he makes money off that. That's one of the things. And one of his things he'll do too is he had classes before that would teach men how to use women in like I guess porno cam. You know, they have these things now where women will perform naked and things like that for fans only, people who buy membership. And he talks about using women to get them to do that, and he makes the money off of it. And he was teaching how to do that with 2 other women.
Okay.
Yeah. So this guy's a character. He's been arrested recently, but this is kind of off the subject of what we're talking about. Maybe we can cover that another time in more detail. He was arrested for, they are saying, for prostitution and trafficking, human trafficking. I don't know if that's true or not, but he's well hated, but he's also well followed. But he's not the only one. There's other ones out there like that. Yeah. So these guys have that movement going. So, I mean, what do you say? What do you say to young guys as women are a trap? Being with a woman is a losing game.
Yeah, I mean, on my first hearing of this idea, what occurred to me is this doesn't sound like it's new. I mean, it sounds like this kind of narcissistic, male-centered worldview has been around for a long time. I can remember when I was growing up, and my dad's culture, the swingers that were polyester suits and doing the disco and all that, it was all about take care of number one.
Yeah.
You know, put yourself first before everything else. And you were the king of the castle and just all the macho type stuff.
Right.
So I kind of think that this idea is probably one of these ideas that resurfaces again. It reinvents itself as culture marches on, just takes on modern nomenclature and bells and whistles as the technology develops.
Yeah.
But it seems like a pretty old idea to me.
Well, growing up from my culture, men having a second wife on the side, it was common.
Yeah.
I'm not saying everyone did it, no, but it happened. They would even have second families on the side. And so you just didn't throw it in your wife's face, and you kind of quietly did it, but it's obvious at the same time.
Well, in some Asian cultures, that's just part of the culture.
Yeah.
You have a mistress, you have your wife.
Yeah.
The wife is in command of your household, but the mistress is there for fun and recreation. And
So, but this movement's taking it a bit further. They're saying being with a woman is a losing game. You're not going to win this game. So don't play it. Play it by your rules. That's all self-centered around you, or centered around your needs.
That's where, when I run against that phrase, a bell goes off in my mind. That's a statement that comes from pain.
Yeah.
That's a guy that's had all of his hopes and dreams crushed.
Right.
That was very vulnerable at one point.
Yeah.
Maybe more than one point. And he crashed and burned.
Yeah.
Probably had his part, but maybe he had a woman that was unscrupulous. You never know.
Yeah, you're right.
But, if that happens several different times, eventually you can kind of form a woman haters club philosophy, going back to the Little Rascals.
He-Man Woman Haters Club.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. As a defensive posture.
I could understand some men who've been hurt by women too, saying, hey, I want out of this. I don't like this. I want out. I don't agree with it. I think they should stand up. And here's a truth too. If a man has it happen with 2 or 3 women, I think he's really got to ask himself the question, What am I not listening? What am I doing wrong? I'm sure every woman who's been with has told him, and he's not listening. We have a responsibility to better ourselves, too. We just can't come in like a spoiled child with a coddling mother and expect the woman to cater everything we want. We have our part in it. And then there's times when there's just really bad women out there, and they'll pull a man through the ringer, use him up, and they do it intentionally.
Because they're human beings.
Yeah, I mean, they're out there.
Everybody's a human being. You know, in the Bible, there's a saying that no greater love hath a man that he laid down his life for his friend.
Yeah.
Well, no greater love has a man for himself than when he refuses to lay down his life for anybody except himself.
Yeah.
And this is kind of where this guy is.
That's...
You know, and he's one of these guys, like, he's only saying what we're all thinking, you know? He's just the first guy to jump out and put the banner above maybe all these guys are thinking. They're just looking for somebody to galvanize these bitter ideas into a philosophy that now is something I can join, and I can take shelter in the group and behave this way moving forward.
Someone's got to stand up and scream this. I'm sure a lot of them feel that way. Yeah, you're right. You're right. But we will get into this deeper. I mean,
now why is this a critical thing to bring up to these young guys that have no father?
Well, here's the problem as I see it. Men have been lost their purpose. We're constantly challenged by different movements, feminism. They're calling us toxic masculinity because we're men. They're almost chastising us for male traits we have. Mm-hmm. And so these young men are being raised like this. They have no fathers in the homes. They've lost their perspective on who they are in God and what God decrees and demands are for their lives. And so they're floating. They're floating. And so you have a guy like this guy, Andrew Tate, who stands up and he screams out everything you're too ashamed to say out loud. And he's bringing up all these faults. Yeah. And he has answers too. He has a whole bag of answers. But again, this is the way I like to describe it. Is that you have a fine bottle of wine, and that's a good thing and it's nice. But if you put a few drops of urine in it, that wine's now, no one's going to touch it. That's how some of the best lies come across with a vein of truth, and then there's this twist that comes with it. There's that few drops of urine that come in it, and these lies are toxic, and they're dangerous. And I tell you, they do not lead to a good place.
Now, this does sound like it's kind of a backlash to the idea of ultra-feminism. You know, when their motto was, look, a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle.
Right.
Unless the fish is paying your rent, then you need that fish.
Right.
You know. But, you know, and so in answering that, if women are making this Amazon-like statement that we don't need men at all, we're independent, then why shouldn't a man say, well, then, you know, the hell with you. I'm going to be in my own club, and I'll dip my finger into your world when I need it, when I choose, and then I'm going to get out. Yeah.
You know, and that world's out there for them too. If you want to just use women, the promiscuity's out there, and you can do that, and you can check out of this. But I would say this: I don't believe that of most women. I've always been the type of guy, I hold the door open for a woman. You know, I've always been that way, and I've actually had a girl tell me I can open my own door, and I said, "You got it all wrong. I'm not saying you can't. I'm respecting you. You're the giver of life, and I believe in showing you a higher level of respect than I do men." And she accepted that. You know, she was fine with that. I think, but most of the time, they're pleasantly shocked, but they are shocked. Because when I'm at work or outside, I hold the door open, and they'll stop, like what are you doing? Not all. Some just go right with it, but most will stop for a second. I've even had them say, "Oh, no, you go first." And I jokingly, I always say, no, I'd rather die than me go first. You know, and they kind of smile it off and they go through. But, you know, so my point is this, and they may put me in the ranks of this guy after saying this, but I really do believe a woman will follow a good man. If you're a good man and you live the life's principles that God's called you to live, women will follow that, and women will be drawn to that. Mm-hmm. They'll see you as a protector and a provider. You got to do it right, though. You got to do it right, and you got to bring all those elements to the table. So I would say most women are not like that. Most women are not ultra feminist warriors.
Aggressively feminist.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, they want their respect.
I tend to agree.
Rightfully so.
You look at the population, rise above the level of the breakdown of men and women. Just talking about people, most people don't want to be jerks.
Right.
And they tend to be drawn to guys or anybody who's not a jerk that is a quality person.
Right.
And they'll tend to be repelled to people that show themselves to be caustic. Right. So that cuts across the sex lines.
Your son's taking a call while we're talking.
Yeah, that's James. Sometimes his hand rings off the wrist. So that's his cell phone.
I think that's it. Oh, sorry, James. Sorry. Okay.
See, we're talking too much.
Yeah. But the funny thing, the other thing is this movement comes and says, hey, take care of yourself. What I hear when they say take care of your body, your health, do your own projects, build your wealth, and I hear them say focus on yourself. Okay. I see that as a narcissistic movement of self-centeredness. It's all about me. But they think that they're going to get satisfaction from that. And I would argue in the short term, it may feel freeing and it may even bring good results. But the truth of the matter is to be so self-centered throughout your entire life, man, you are throwing your life away and you're wasting it.
What I'm looking for is the point where the off-ramp from reason. Because a lot of this is reasonable. Before I met my wife, I could have been called one of these MGTOWs. Not necessarily as an aggressive philosophy, but just as a de facto condition of my life.
Right.
I didn't date because in my mind I'm thinking, why would I date and kick off a romance if I have no intention of marrying?
Right.
So why start that engine if there's nowhere to drive? And I didn't take advantage of women, which maybe that makes me a freak of nature.
That's different.
Yeah,
that's different.
But in the absence of that, in the absence of living in that dating lifestyle, I did every one of these things. I took care of myself, took care of my health, worked my hobbies, worked at my job, did the best I could at my job.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with any of that list.
That's the problem. You have a sweet wine here. There's veins of truth in this.
So the off-ramp where the little drips come, is the drips of urine is, well, that's what I really want to identify because I don't even know if I can completely articulate it. It's when you look at women as being just another prop on the stage of your life.
Right.
Everything could be used. I mean, you look at the stage we're on right now. We got chairs, we got curtains, we got things that are all part of this environment. If we look at women as being just a part of that environment,
right,
then that's where the off-ramp goes off.
That's the problem. Because you're right, there's nothing wrong with taking care of your health. There's nothing wrong with enjoying your hobbies and focusing on projects, or you may want to build your career. Those are all good things. They really are. But if you look at it as a woman that's getting in the way of that, and if you think that road is going to lead all the way to a life of purposeful living, it's not, I would say. Those things do not replace what God's offered us in a relationship with our wives,
So when I reviewed his material, I don't see him saying ignore women and just be a man. Live in the man world, smoking jacket, at the club. Just be a Sherlock Holmes in your life and live your man life. What I hear him say is you need to distinctively step back from a woman. Step back and let them wear the labels that I'm giving them. They're untrustworthy. They're a trap.
Right.
They're aggressive. They're predatory. They want what they can get. Whatever assets they can harvest from you, they're going to play the game to get access to that.
Right.
That's kind of his attitude about women. And it makes me wonder, where does that attitude come from? What happened in his life that turned him in this way?
My guess is he's a very narcissistic person. And it's about me. And he doesn't offer any apologies for it. He doesn't necessarily hurt anyone. And he says things with extreme confidence. You hear him talk, you think the words of God were coming out of his mouth. He knows it, and here it is. I think that combination, but I think it comes from narcissism. It comes from, it's all about me, and I think that narcissism is a horrible trait to have. And and men and women both have it at times, and that word's thrown around very lightly these days. But the truth of narcissism is it's a very hurtful condition, And so I think I think it comes from narcissism. It's all about me. It's a get as much as I can. What were you saying that your stepfather used to say?
Yeah, take care of number one.
Take care of number one, and that's what it comes from. But to me, for a man who has these nice cars, all these beautiful women around him, saying this to young men, maybe young men who have been hurt or are frustrated by the dating game or frustrated by women because they're very different than us, boy, his words sound like a nice, cool drink of water on a hot day. And so they resonate. But the problem is, with some of these veins of truth, now here's these lies creep in. These horrible lies, I would say life-hurting lies. I would even say society-hurting lies. I'll get more into that in a little while. But I think that's the problem. But they have these guys coming in. The guys who at one time here's something that we call men to be men on this podcast or this show. We very unashamedly say, hey, be a man, step up, live out a man's life. And he's saying the same thing. And in this society, we have a lot of what they call beta male, very, very passive men. Mm-hmm. So in a way, we're both calling men to the same thing. Hey, brothers,
we just have a different definition for that.
Exactly.
Term.
What to cling to, I guess, the tenets of the thought. We say step into it for the benefit of others, and they're saying step into it for the benefit of yourself.
Right. And to be fair, to be totally fair, because I always want to be absolutely fair about everything.
Yeah,
right?
Try.
If it's just my opinion about what a man is and his opinion about what a man is, they're both have equal weight. We don't take our definition of manhood from our own opinion. We take our definition of manhood as it's been revealed in the Word of God.
In the Word of God, right.
Because we're men of God.
Right, men of God. A greater purpose.
Huh? Yeah.
And that's what it boils down to, Chris. It's really purpose.
What gives us the right to say our way of looking at what a man is different and superior to his definition of a manhood?
Well, this is what I can say. It comes from the Bible. And I happen to believe the Bible is the Word of God. And I happen to believe that this is a book, an ancient path that we follow that leads to true happiness in life, leads to purpose in life. And I believe that what we're saying, now this is coming from a 54-year-old man, 102-year-old man, right?
66.
Yeah, we're sitting here all these years later saying, yeah, young men, this is the right path. This is a noble path. And I think the path he's saying, even though we have some similarities in our calling to men, his path leads to a very sad, sad life. I don't see it as happiness because at this age, we know we've had new cars in our life. Uh-huh. A car doesn't bring happiness.
Yeah.
That newness wears off. In 10 years, it's now an old car. We understand these things. A woman's beauty, guess what? They fade. I'm sorry, truth. They fade. The things you're looking for that you think, the things he's selling that men think are going to bring me joy and happiness are fleeting. And it's a counterfeit. It's a very poor counterfeit, but it's a very alluring counterfeit because it plays to every desire in a man.
And the most important thing in my mind, the thing that's irreplaceable is all the years of your life that can get spun off.
Wasted.
In this direction.
I agree with you.
Looking at life and the possibility of starting a family, risking it all to commit to one woman, to loving them, to having children, to creating a home, to raising the children, to undergoing all the transformation that would take place. Looking at that proposition when you're in your early 20s, it's very different than looking at it when you're in your 50s or 60s and you wasted all those years.
Yeah.
Not only wasted them, you're dragging the wreckage of it up into whatever your life is. Because you can never escape what you've done.
And you brought this up earlier. Some men have been hurt, legitimately hurt. Yeah. They went into the relationship full love, full commitment, and they were wronged. And that does happen. We can't sit here and say it doesn't.
Sure.
Women cheat on men. Wives leave families. Guys get dumped. And it's the truth.
It has to happen. That's how the sorting happens. I'll give you a personal story. When I was in college, many moons ago, I met a girl that was in a cafeteria that was just stunning. She was so beautiful, long black hair, sitting by herself, and she had this kind of charisma that just burned white hot. It was so intense, and I was, pretty much a loner, not very many moves, not a shaker, as far as males go. But every morning she would be there in the cafeteria when I was there, and I may have my French toast, and I just could not look away. Every time she was there, it's like I knew when she was entering the building.
Sounds like you're one of those creeps who stares and won't stop staring.
I'm going to truncate this very, very much just to kind of get to the point. I approached her and struck up a friendship. We both got cast in the same play in college. And so we were, working in the play together. We started hanging out with one another. And then it was revealed to me that she was gay. Okay. And it explained a lot. It explained why she was just shooting down all these other better looking guys that would bust moves on her. I never busted moves on her because I didn't have any moves.
You didn't have any moves to bust.
Right. I was there for comic relief, basically. And she really she loved the fact that I could make her laugh.
Right.
And she kind of folded me into her entourage. But we ended up in a situation where I began to give my heart away to her. I was not really conscious I was doing it. I was just everything, all the situations that would come, my heart would break towards her.
Right.
I would, and so you develop this sense of commitment, this sense of momentum, even though she's gay. And at that age, I didn't really understand what all this is about.
Right.
I didn't understand her commitment to it. All I understood is that it's this, but I'm so overwhelmingly in an emotional bonding with her that I thought that could overcome everything.
All right.
Because love wins. That's what you see on Lifetime movies, right?
Yeah.
Well, love always wins the day.
Yeah.
Well, I really loved her. I absolutely, absolutely loved her, and I could not make that matter. It didn't matter. Eventually, she got connected with another woman and moved out of my life.
All right.
Said, sayonara, thanks for the good times, and away she went. We never actually consummated a romantic relationship at all. It was always just a friendship. But the love that I had was just left hanging in the wind.
Right.
When that broke off, it was so ultra painful.
Right.
And it really cast me into a very desperate place. In fact, I remember driving my car over the Angeles Crest Forest Highway when I was leaving the town that, we had this sort of affair in. And I was just thinking how easy it would be just to make a little turn of my wheel and I'd go right off that road.
Crushed you, yeah.
And that would be the end of it.
Yeah.
And you know what happened? I was marinating in that thought, and I turned the corner and I saw Smokey the Bear. A full-size 6-foot Smokey the Bear wearing trousers, fur on the top, all by himself in the middle of the woods, walking on the side of the road.
Seriously.
Okay, well, time kind of stood still for me at that moment. It's like I'm so shocked.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't 2 beats later, I turned the rest of the corner, there's a whole photo shoot set up. And they were doing a commercial with Smokey the Bear. But that, God orchestrated that moment to jar me that life is not over.
Right.
Now, I could have taken all that bitterness and that could have fermented into a philosophy of my own that could have corrupted me for decades.
Right.
But God in his mercy, what he did is he dropped Smokey the Bear on the mountain right there to basically tell me, don't give up on life because you never know what's coming around the next corner.
Right.
And that pulled me out of that. But there's a lot of guys
you can see
that crash and burn, and maybe more than once.
Right.
And after a while, they begin to think, it's got to be me. There's got to be something wrong with me. Well, that's an intolerable thought.
Yeah.
And so you cling. Somebody with force, with power and authority that stands up and says, it's not your fault. You just need to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And here's a whole structured thing you can buy into and be one of the brothers.
And it's not you. It's them.
It's them.
Yeah.
They're the ones you can't be trusted.
That's a powerful message.
Yeah.
And I understand why it resonates. And I don't want to discount men who've been hurt. Women have left men for their best friends. it gets worse than your story. I mean, and there's men out there who experience that. I don't want to take them away. I don't want to take away their right to have that feeling of hurt and even the distrust that comes from it. But I guess what I would say is there's healing. Pick yourself up by the bootstraps, get on the pony again. And that's a really hard thing to say because these are crushing moments in our lives, you know? And it takes a long time to get over it. Time seems to be the best element to heal a broken heart. The
tragedy is if you cling to something like this, if you take shelter in a place like, in a philosophy like this MGTOW, what you do is you take yourself out of the possibility of meeting that one person that could be with you. Yeah. In the 10 years that in the 10 years that you bury yourself in a MGTOW philosophy, you could be so cynical that many high quality people come in and pass right by your life.
Right.
And you never even see them.
I would even say it becomes your religion.
Yeah.
It becomes what you hold to. And it becomes your truth. And now you're defending it. Now you're living it out. And again, looking at life, I look back on my years of life. Boy, if I wasted a year on that philosophy, I'd be very brokenhearted right now. What a waste. You know, I guess what we're trying to say is, hey guys, hang in there, man. Get up. You got knocked down and you got scrapes and bruises and bumps. No one's denying you that, but get up. It's worth it. And we'll go more into why it's worth it and things that we have a format we're trying to stick to on the subject. But so I guess in short, what we're trying to say is men who join this out of hurt or frustration with women, we understand. We understand how alluring this could be.
Right.
You know?
Just think about it. And that's what we're going to try to do is give you some ways to think about this before you throw all your cards in, you shove all in.
Yeah, exactly. So would you say that women today lack loyalty?
Women that don't have a relationship with God can swing any which way. See, this is the thing. Not at the risk of breaking religious, and I really don't want to do that. It's not the purpose of our show. But when you cling to a God that has laid down laws that came from his mind and no man, now what happened on Mount Sinai that made Mount Sinai so incredibly unique? Remember, we all saw the movie when Charlton Heston came down and he had the Ten Commandments. That was the first time where God put his idea about how things should be run into the pot, along with all the other crazy ideas that were happening all over the earth. Every planet, every place on earth was ruled by an empire, and the king decided what the laws would be, and everybody had to comply, or they get their heads cut off.
Right.
Okay? This one place, somebody came in, God made a moment where he put his laws on earth, and he interjected into the conversation. If you have a woman that is cleaving to the Lord, that is looking to that to run her life, chances are she's going to align herself to what God says. If she doesn't have that allegiance, then all bets are off.
Then there is no truth.
Right. There's no truth. There's only
compass.
Expediency.
Right. Exactly.
There's only will. And that's where like these Amazon philosophies, the opposite side of the MGTOW, where we don't need men at all.
Right. Right.
We'll just be a sisterhood forever. What do I need them? It goes off the rails.
It's funny. A lot of God's ways are contrary to man's ways. What's pleasing to the flesh, God says no. And there's a lot of principles like this. So to the brokenhearted or to the frustrated, I think the biblical message is stand up, recover, forgive. And that's a tough one because a lot of women have done men very wrong. But forgive. Imagine that. God's calling you to forgive them. Well, hold on, Rick. Do you know what she did to me? Or hold on, God. Do you know what she did to me? Yeah. Do you know what she did to my family? Do you know what she did to my heart? But here's the God's ways intervening. Now, hold on, son. You have sinned too. You're not perfect.
Right.
Get up, dust off. You fell down. That's fine. That's life. You're not in heaven. You're on that side of heaven still. Get up, dust off, forgive her. Sincerely forgive her. If you can't find that, ask me. I'll help you forgive her, and move on and play your role as a man. So put yourself out there again.
The thing about forgiving is that if you don't forgive somebody for the heartbreak they caused in your life, then you drag that along with you all through your life. The only way to untether from a moment like that is to forgive. Forgiving is what unclips it.
It unclips it.
It stays in your history, but it fades into the background. It doesn't come into your present
I heard
life.
you say this at church, Chris, that unforgiveness is that big ball with a chain strapped around, a metal strap around your neck. And with unforgiveness, you're dragging that ball into bed. You're dragging it to work. You're dragging it to go, play.
Right.
And why? Unclip it and let it go. But but forgiveness is the key. And that's the hardest thing. So this guy's telling you, no, it's not you. It's all of them are like that. Stay away from them.
Right.
And God's saying, no, son, it's not that way. You got a bad one.
Well, he's saying, don't forgive what they did. Instead, change the way you live your life. And always remember the pain they caused you. And know that you're justified in anything you do from this point forward because you're entitled.
You got bit by a snake.
You're entitled because of this horrible thing that happened to you. You have a forever entitlement ticket to go the way you want, to be a MGTOW.
That's what he's saying. You got bit by a snake. Now let me teach you what snakes are and how you live with snakes. And this is the cult problem with this whole movement. It's contrary to God's ways, and you'll look back in life later and waste years with this type of thinking. And in my mind, it's a dangerous poison to drink. It turns into cancer and it grows in a man. And there's some guys who take this way too far. But God's ways are different. And God's ways are the true north of a compass. God's ways are right. And your life will have purpose and meaning. And that's what everyone needs. So I think you bring up a really good point. Some of the other men have no life experience. They hear the message and, it sounds true. Look at the cars that guy drives. I love cars. Look at the cars he drives. Oh my God, look at all those women. That's what I want.
Sure.
And other guys will follow that just out of their lack of experience in life.
Well, that's why I used to be jealous of gay guys. A gay couple comes together. You got two men with all their income potential.
Yeah.
They're never going to have kids unless they adopt.
Yeah. So basically what we're saying is, one is we understand why men follow this movement, either out of pain or out of inexperience. We understand how alluring this movement is, but we're telling you there is a better way. And there's serious concerns about this movement. In the next episode, we'll be talking about that in detail. So thank you for joining us. We pray that God blesses your life and open your eyes so you can see the truth. Thank you very much.